In this video, we're going to cover Hitchhiker Guide Map 1 Basics, and we're going to review the AutoCAD or the basics of AutoCAD controls. So when you first launch the AutoCAD application, you're going to be presented with a screen or a similar screen like you see now, and there's a nice call to action to start a drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Start Drawing so we can look at some of the different controls of AutoCAD. So first thing, right along the top of our program, we have the tabbed ribbon. And by tabbed ribbon, I mean we have all these different commands here within our Home tab. And as I click on the different parts of my tab here, it brings up different commands. Now you can essentially run all of AutoCAD using the tabbed ribbon way of doing things, which is absolutely fine. That's just one way to do it. If you like menus and buttons and drop downs and things of that nature, maybe the ribbon will appeal to you. Now on the bottom of the screen down here, you're going to see the command prompt or the command window. So this is personally where I learned AutoCAD, and I'm a very prompt driven or a command driven AutoCAD user, so I'm going to try my best to show you multiple ways of doing things. But say for example that you wanted to do a command such as draw a circle, right? So I click down to my command and I type in C, and you'll see on the right hand side of my screen everything that starts, every command that starts with the letter C comes up, and the first one is circle. And there's a couple different ways that I can accept this. I can come over here with my mouse and click on circle. I could also hit enter. I can continue to hit circle. You're going to find as you go through and as we do a little more of these commands that there's, again, more than one way to do things. So that's one way to grab a circle. And if we go back to our ribbon up top, you'll see that in our Home tab, we have a circle button here as well. Okay, so just wanted to call out to action two different areas where you could possibly start putting in commands into AutoCAD. Now let's take a moment to talk about our mouse. Okay, so the most beneficial mouse to have is going to be at least a 3-button mouse with a mouse wheel in the middle. And the left mouse button is used mainly to specify and select objects. Now, all these different mouse clicks are if you're just using a standard mouse, you didn't modify it in any way. But the left click is where you can actually select items. So for example, if I just draw a quick line here and I want to select on this line, I'm going to left click on the line and you'll see that it highlights. The middle mouse wheel, if I roll it up and down, zooms me in and out. If I press and hold on my middle mouse wheel, I can pan my view. And my right mouse button puts me into different shortcuts or property menus. All right, so depending on where I am, where my mouse is, or where my cursor is in the graphic window, depends on what type of shortcuts I may get. So for example, if I just put my mouse up in the middle of nowhere here and right click, you'll see that I have a certain set of commands, or a certain set of options I should say. Whereas if I left click on the line and then right click, I may get some different menus. So don't be afraid to right click on some certain items or different items to see what comes up. You may find that you find a shortcut or an easier workflow by left clicking and right clicking as opposed to finding something with a command or up on the ribbon window. Now it's important to understand that not every single business or not every client, not every customer, not every user has the same drawing conventions, and sometimes it's you need to conform to industry or company standards. All right, so for example, I'm just going to paste an image here on the screen. So here's an example that came from the guide, from the Hitchhiker's Guide of a deck layout. Right now, it's the same exact deck, right? There's nothing different between the geometry from the deck on the left to the deck on the right, but you'll notice that the annotations or the dimensions are called out differently. So for example, on the left, we have 35 feet. That's it, it's 35 with a tick mark. On the right-hand side, we have 35 feet dash 0 inches, right? So there's different ways to call out the same information, and we want to make sure that we're using the proper templates and the proper drawing conventions when we are starting a drawing. So one way to do that is if you go up onto the left-hand side here, you're going to see that we have a new button. And if I click on that new button, it opens up a template option for me. Okay, and if you're not sure of where to start for a template, Autocad.dwt is always a great resource to start with. It's what I'm currently in right now, and it's the simplest of templates. Just real quick, when I'm talking about that .dwt nomenclature, a DWT is always a template file. When you save a drawing, it's going to be a DWG. And we'll get into that a little more as we get into the application of doing so. But another good guide to get into, depending on what industry that you're working for and using AutoCAD for, is down here. There are several different tutorial templates, one for architectural, one for manufacturing, for imperial, and then architecture manufacturing for metric. Go ahead and open those up, check those out. You'll see how things are laid out, and a lot of the nuances and behind the scenes stuff for using a proper drawing template is already loaded in there. So it's just important to know that all drawings are not created equal. There are different ways to do things, and nearly every single company out there has their own drawing standard and drawing conventions that you'd want to follow, and usually that starts with a template. The next thing I want to discuss is units. So to do that, let me first let me erase my deck drawing here, and I'm going to paste in another reference image. So we talk about units, we talk about the type of measurement that we're going to be referencing, right? So for example, we have two blue blocks right here, and both have a dimension of 125. Well, 125, what? Is this 125 feet for a large building, or is it 125 millimeters for a small mechanical part? So we have to understand, or we have to make sure that we set the proper units in our drawing. And to do that, the way I do it is simply type in units, and you notice that I just typed it in just as I was in my model view here. The nice thing about the newer AutoCAD versions is you can type anywhere in AutoCAD, and it starts to pulling up the commands. If you're using a version that doesn't have that enabled, you could even click down in the command bar down here and type in units and hit enter, and it brings up the same dialog box. Now here we could change our type of units. So right now, my drawing is set for decimal units, right? But say I wanted to do a floor plan for a house. I'd want to drop this down and click on architectural, and that puts me in feet and inches. And then I could also change the precision, right? How close I want, or how precise I want my dimensions to be, or my lines to be. You could change that anywhere from nothing all the way up to 1/256th of an inch, right? So in most cases for architectural, that's going to be 1/16th of an inch. But as you can see, you can go down through and check whatever you want, whatever industry that you're working for. Make sure that you're using the proper architectural units, or excuse me, proper drawing units. So one thing to keep a note of when you're changing your units is once you select a template and then you start working in a drawing, if you change the units, it does not change the units in the template. You have to resave that afterwards. So as you get working with AutoCAD, it's going to happen where you're working with a template and you think you're working with one particular set of units when in reality you're using another type of units. It's going to happen. It happens to all of us. It's a good habit in the forefront to really start getting in the habit of checking your units and making sure that those are correct before you start getting into your drawings. It is one extra step, but it's going to save you a whole lot of time in your workflow later on. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our Guide Map 1 Basics on the Hitchhiker's Guide to AutoCAD Basics. Again, there will be a link to that document in the description below. And the next guide, I believe, is going to be viewing. So I'll see you over in the second video for viewing.